Each day, as the sun sets, in the still of the night, the sound of anklets come to life to tell a story of a soul wild yet serene, calm yet tumultuous. Eternities have passed, yet she remains clad in gold, glorious as the sun's rays. Who is she who watches over Angkor? A love so pure, the guardian angel of heaven on earth. Her eyes speak 1,000 words, a tale of love, anguish, deceit, and salvation. A story that survives the tide of time, but not without a journey back in time to the haunting sounds of the war drums in the kingdom of the great Suryavarman II.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aravind. Thank you very much. And welcome to the conversation with Aravinth Kumarasamy, Artistic Director, APSARAS Arts Singapore. Thank you so much for so generously sharing your time and this lovely journey that you have had over the 4 productions that we are going to talk about. Now, it's very special because we have been looking at 2 aspects. One is revisiting the past, and the other is about passing on the aesthetics or the intangible. So in both of this, let's get straight to the conversation, because I think the journey started with Nirmanika.
You can say so.
Yeah, so let's look at Nirmanika, and we look at Angkor Wat and their sequels. So let's see what happened across these 4 productions. So let's start with Nirmanika. What was the inspiration? What drew you to that idea?
Actually, the vision was to create an ensemble choreographies and an ensemble, dance ensemble, Bharatanatyam ensemble. Bharatanatyam is a solo form, okay, and it's taught solo, it is mastered solo, and soloists are known for it. But in today's day and age, to bring a group of dancers, an ensemble of dancers, and then just doing the margam in a so-called group fashion was not something that I thought would be fulfilling and doesn't do justice to what the idiom can do and what the vocabulary can extend to. So the journey started to search for a different way of presenting ensemble work. Of course, we have a lot of example in the earlier eras of more than one dancers coming together in the typical Natya Nadagam, repertoire. And of course, Rukmini Devi has shown the path on how well it can be done. But other than that, is there another idiom that can be brought in together, another way of presenting Bharatanatyam? So not taking a typical narrative of king, queen, epics, Puranas, can we use other narratives to tell stories, and how we can bring multiple bodies together. And the way the choreography should work is that each of the multiple bodies have to come together. If one of them doesn't come, then the choreography, the movement is not complete. So the movement is going across bodies, yeah, across dances, which is also very different in a Natya Nadagam. Natya Nadagam, each one has a character and they play their character, be it a villain, be it the hero, heroine, whatever. But in another way of ensemble where you have multiple bodies, can the movement be reflected and shown through those 4 or 5 at that particular point on stage, and not just not by bringing in together, the character stories. So this was the journey, and for that we needed to find a different narrative. So architecture is something that I was very interested from young, okay, and in fact, my choice was to be an architect. But now the world and the life has moved some other way. But architecture, it was passion, something that was very passion from a young child, from a young baby, reflecting architecture. And what I liked about architecture was how both architecture and dance have nothing in common, one could say. If the building shakes and moves, it's dangerous. If the dance is rigid and static, it's not dance. So what's the commonality? The commonality I found was that they both manipulate physical space, and light. Right? So even on stage now today, light and space is very important in ensemble choreography. I'm not talking about soloist here, right? So have multiple bodies on stage. They will divide the space into triangles, squares, halves, quarters, 3/4, and also the lights coming in, how the shadow, the lighting. So these are common to a building and architecture, and also to an ensemble dance. So that's why the journey started in Nirmanika. The word Nirmanika means about architecture. So the dance was about architecture.
How did you actually come to this idea of light and space in specific? Now that you say it, it sounds obvious, but I don't think, or was it so clear that the moment you said architecture, I'm going to work with sound and, with light and space, was it as simple as that, or was there a journey?
It was a journey. It was a journey to search through. Each of our production, we take time to do research. So obviously the first day of thought of Nirmanika would not have been that. They had to come through. I must also say that there was an inspiration to me from Madhavi Mudgal when she presented one of her ensemble works. And I could see some kind of, way of how she used light and formation. The dance was not about architecture. It was a Pallavi that she presented with multiple dancers. She herself was part of that Pallavi. And later when I asked her, how did you do this? She said, oh, well, I'm an architect, Aravinth. So I was trained architect, and I used that to use light. So the light answer came from inspired by her. The space manipulation was later I found as I evolved on the road.
Yeah, what you're saying is very beautiful, because you're right. While we see so often dancers around us using both space and light, for us to literally connect all of them together at a moment when you need it, when it makes further sense to you, it needs that special moment. And that's very beautiful. Thank you.
And also, Deepa, this was also a quest to answer how Bharatanatyam can be contemporary.
Yeah.
Because being outside of India, we are always bombarded with this contemporary dance, and we are kind of pigeonholed as if we are doing something that was 5,000 years ago, which is also not true. Tanjore Quartet is as contemporary as we are. But having said that, so how can you bring about contemporary narratives, contemporary themes? And this is how the journey started. Looking. So in Nirmanika, there's no hero, heroine. There is no, but interestingly, the soul of Bharatanatyam is still intact, because the dancers only know Bharatanatyam and I only know Bharatanatyam. So we don't pretend to do something we don't know. But we thought, and the beauty is that, as the Natya Shastra says, the rasa is there. So without rasa, there is nothing to communicate.
Very
So
nice.
there is a rasa coming through it. So that's why, this journey started, and it kind of, led to the rest of the journey of the company, of how you can imagine ensemble dancers moving without trying to do the typical, epical stories. Yeah?
I loved what you said, what you started with, to say that, I'd have been an architect if not for this. And I think this seems to be a recurring statement, because right from someone like C.V. Chandrasekhar sir, who is so much into science, he says, if not this, that's where I'd have been. You have said we have Apurva Jayaraman, who actually has done her doctorate in definitely not dance. And then we have another doctor also, Anuradha, who is a medical doctor. So, for all those young students out there who wonder, should I do this or not? I think it's just about living life holistically. It's not this or that, but all of it coming together into one complete happy human being.
So in art making, you are who you are.
Nice.
You can't pretend.
So true. So true. You did mention this also when you were speaking about how, you all are just Bharatanatyam dancers. So you only do what you know well. And that's so important. While people might ask different questions, it's also about telling that something ancient need not necessarily just be something exotic or outdated, but it's as contemporary as what it can be. It's just the way we perceive it. And it's probably about us, doing the jigsaw at our end before we reach up. That's very nice. So with Nirmanika followed Angkor, am I correct?
Yeah.
So what was his inspiration for Angkor then?
So there is, we are in Singapore. So, and Singapore is the connecting point to Southeast Asia if you look from the Indian side of it. Correct. And Singapore is part of Southeast Asia. So we are in the center of that. And for many years and many travels, I've been very inspired by Southeast Asia, right? And Southeast Asia as a treasure trove, especially for Indian artisan, authors, researchers, scholars. It provides a fascinating experience of seeing all what is Indian, all what is that was born from India, brought to Southeast Asia, but they are manifested in a very, very local form. So it's not copy paste, right? So those ancient civilizations, they didn't copy paste. They assimilated, they created something very, very beautiful. And in case of Cambodia, they extended it further. They went even more deeper. So, that's fascination. So in Nirmanika, we do cover one monument, which is Borobudur from Central Java, Indonesia, one of the largest Buddhist monuments. But my trip to Cambodia was before that. And I was very, very fascinated with Angkor Wat, as a temple. And it fascinated me that it's the largest place of worship, not just temple. It's bigger than Sri Rangam, bigger than Mecca, bigger than Vatican. It's huge, 1 mile by 1 mile, right? And it is a great imagination of whoever came together to make it. And it's and it has been now proven by scientifically that it was all done in one go. So if you look at Meenakshi Amman temple or Brigadeshwara temple or even Srang, they get extended by different dynasties. So even in the Tanjavur temple, the shrine for Skanda Murugan is actually a Vijayanagara Empire period. We see the architecture a bit different from Rajaraja's earlier temple. But in Angkor, it was all planned, blueprinted, and imagined, and then they went to construct it all in one go. So that was a very fascinating thing. And also two things. Now the entire Khmer kingdoms were Shaivites. So they were Shiva devotees. They built great temples for Shiva. And they had, they even replicated Ganga in Cambodia, in the Mount Kulen. And they knew that this Ganga is not born out of from Shiva's head. So they carved thousands of lingam on the riverbed. So the water washes through the lingam and purifies and comes into Angkor. So they were Shiva deity. But the largest temple they built it's for Vishnu, and that's
Oh.
Angkor Wat. And then they continue back as Shaivites. So why in the middle there is a Vishnu temple being built? So these were the quest. And the other quest is in Angkor Wat. Of course, you have the dancing apsaras carved all over, thousands of them. But then there are 1,732 figurines which are tall, standing. They're not dancing figurines, standing figurines. You would have seen in the video earlier, and they are called devatas. And it was fascinating. Why? Of course, when the Europeans wrote the history many years ago, they said, "Oh, it's a mausoleum for the king, and that's all his concubines that he had in his harem." But it was not true, because we later now it has been proven that it was dedicated to womanhood, dedicated to the matriarchs of the Khmer society, and that's why you have all these women figurines. They're not dancing figurines; they're standing figurines. And also the entire temple structure is like the lotus that Sri Lalita holds in the Sri Chakra. The five budded lotuses are the central one. So the entire temple is a lotus form, and it is a Meru, and it has the moat. So there's a lot of significance of that temple, and it interests how did it happen? So the quest was why. So that's the search that happened in Angkor. So that here is interesting. In Nirmanika, it was about architecture. In Angkor, it is trying to question and searching why the architecture happened. So in the production, we don't do much about the architecture, but we tell the story of how this architecture could have been envisioned, and why Suryavarman the second actually envisioned this great monument. So this is the Angkor story actually.
It's amazing for me to hear, because even earlier you did mention about Madhviji's, lighting being an inspiration. And what I'm hearing when you speak is that wherever you are, you listen so carefully with your mind and head and heart and everything put together. Because I'm sure all of us might go, to places on a holiday, but really we don't get back as much. It's about listening so much more carefully. And I love the way you kind of brought into that word why. Like in Nirmanika, it was what is the architecture? How is it all about? But here it is about why. And you started from a place very close by. So it's Singapore and just your neighboring space. So really the message that I get along is there's so much of inspiration all around us. The world is so beautiful, and it's just about us, tuning ourselves to it and syncing ourselves to the beauty and the marvel of the world around. And as we start the quest, it just unfolds. I mean, it's coming out like a story. Well, it's nice when you have done all the hard work. I'm sure it was not easy. So how long did it take?
Actually, the first visit to Angkor was went to perform for the Ramayana festival. So they had just come out of the Khmer Rouge dark period, and they were back as a democratic country, and they invited all the ASEAN countries to come and do the Ramayana. So from Singapore, I was part of the delegation when they performed. So we saw Angkor from that perspective. We actually performed in front of Angkor. So Angkor was a backdrop, and the audience were facing the monument, and everybody performed. And then later, of course, I went with a guide. Another trip, I went with scholars from Phnom Penh because the research started. So I went with the scholars. So it was a different view. And then after about 12 or 13 visits to Angkor, on my 13th visit, I went with Baduka, and the whole thing was like I've never seen Angkor before.
I can imagine.
As I walked with her, and how she could interpret everything from an artist shastra point of view, from being so knowledgeable she is. It was a different experience of seeing Angkor in a different light. So all these actually come into your inspiration when you want to then create something. And then of course the video that you saw was shot at Angkor. So then I went with Pridashini Govind, and it was then with the artist we are going. I have had our principal dancer Mona Priyan come with me. So we were a team going. Then of course then you view it in another different way. So and this is true to any temple. I mean, I tell anybody that even if you go to Pashupati temple, Pattiswaram temple, the nth time you go, it will be the nth, you will see a different thing that you never saw before. These are the things that the monuments can unravel to you in a particular visit. They'll unravel something that's been there for centuries, but you only saw it in that visit.
So true, so true. In fact, you've touched upon a very beautiful point, and the beautiful point which we have worked through this Ojas project, that as we said, no, the inspiration is always there, but the connect happens only when you stay. Yeah. You said you went 12 to 13 times.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's amazing. So you need to stay in that moment for, a while, breathe it in, take it in, soak in, and come back to it with such different perspectives. And then the story unfolds. So we really don't have to go too far looking out for inspirations. If we could just stay in a space and, try to connect, it looks like somewhere in the penny will drop, I guess. Yeah. And there was another thing also which you said, which was very beautiful. One more point which I've often heard Priyanka, mention through the mentoring sessions. Whether you do 2 hands or 4 hands, whether you're doing a sanchari here or there, whether you need that phrase of music here or there, whatever, whether it's Raghuraman sir, Rajkumar sir, or Priyanka, anyone who has been guiding us, the one recurring statement that has come is, you should be clear about why you're doing it and what you want of it. Mm-hmm. It looked very clear because, as you rightly said, when you go 13, 14 times, slowly, one step at a time, the picture seems to be coming clearer in your head, that now when you speak, by the time you took Priyanka and Mohan with you, you almost knew why you were going and what you wanted out of that trip. Yeah. That clarity obviously shows in your work. Yeah. So when we see, it comes as a very nice, comprehensive work, which is so well thought of, and there are no shortcuts. It's number of times you have revisited.
So in all productions, actually, Deepa, is that you collect a lot of information, lot of things, but you cannot and should not bring them all as stagecraft. Yeah. So you distill and you bring things that you can connect with the audience. If you're doing a documentary in Angkor Wat, then you will pick different things that you researched.
So true.
If you're doing a stage show, then it's a different story. So sadly, and the cream of what you want to show, so probably only 10% only comes on stage as craft. Other 90% is important because the 10% doesn't happen without the 90%. So
absolutely, I was about to say, it's not that the 90% is a waste, because without the 90%, you don't come to the 10%. Yeah. In fact, what you said fits in exactly with the Sangam concept of Kutru, Ketpur, and Munna. You just mentioned, right, that if it was a documentary, the the lines that I'll pick will be different, because what are you to whom you're speaking, in what context, and who's speaking is what defines. Very nice, very nice. And then where did this idea of sequel come?
So, so it was not thought as a sequel, but wanted to. So after Angkor was done, then wanted to explore other parts of Southeast Asia, and then came. If you spend a lot of time in Southeast Asia, especially in Cambodia and other countries as well, you will see how Buddhism and Hinduism have come together and influenced. And for the Southeast Asian civilizations, Buddhism is not an alien religion. It was an extension. It was part of the same ethos of what Hinduism was to say. In fact, the greatest monument that so Suryavarman II built Angkor Wat. Then many many decades later comes Jayavarman VII. He is a Buddhist. He embraced Buddhism. So he built another very large monument called Bayon. It's very beautiful. And in Bayon, you will see both Buddhist and Hindu's iconography coexisting together, right? And he actually, there's a very famous quote of that king to say that, oh, this Buddhism that we are learning now is nothing different from what we were practicing earlier. But this great sage Buddha has made Hinduism easy to practice for a normal man. Okay, so it is the way they see it is very different. So then the sequel came to on the Buddhist monument trade. So Annyasa is what was created. as a sequel or inspiration after Nirmanika. And Annyasa is a Pali word. Pali is the classical language of Buddhism, and it means the path. So it is the path that the audience are taken on various selected Buddhist monuments, starting from Lumbini, the birthplace of Buddha, then to Buddha Gaya, where he attained Nirvana. Then it goes to Sanchi, the first monument that was built. Then to Sri Lanka, to a particular monument called Vattatage. And then it goes to Yangon, Myanmar, Burma, the Golden Pagoda. Then the audience travel to Cambodia, Bayon, then we go to Borobudur, and then we end in Wat Po in Thailand, right? So it is a journey, and there we try to combine two. So the Nirmanika experience and the Angkor experience came together in and the sequel. Of course, now we are evolving, right? So we also learn. So one monument would be about the architecture. The other monument will be why it became a monument. So kind of Sthala Purana, why it is as a revered place. So it alternates in that narrative. But then it is very interesting because it is for the Buddhist community. Annyasa became a great production because they have never seen Bharatanatyam in a Buddhist setting. When they see dance, especially in Southeast Asia, it is from the other genres of Asia, not Indian classical dance coming in Buddhism, very rarely. Of course, we do have productions that were done earlier. Dhananjay Anna even brought his Buddha to Singapore as well many years ago. But talking about Buddhist iconography, so that is what Annyasa is about, the iconography. So maybe I will share a video here. In the Sri Lankan monument Vattatage, the iconography is what's called the moonstone. So it is a half moonstone, which is at the entrance of every Buddhist monument in Sri Lanka. In Vattatage, is very interesting because it has a semicircle, rows of animals and different elements to show the progression of the evolution of the mind. So the first is swan to show the divinity of the swan. Then you have for forbearance, you have the horses, you have the elephants. Then, of course, then you have the creepers to show how you can get entangled in samsara and how you come out of it. And then finally, the lotus, rows of lotus to show the enlightenment. So it is there. So as every visitor the temple, when they step on it and walk to go into the door, they actually are reminded of these stages of life that they are passing. So that became how can we make that moonstone alive with dances? So can we have rows of swans, and can you have rows of elephants? So this is the choreography. Try to make it into another dimension where I actually see these layers coming alive, and to give it a musical structure. I was inspired to use alaripus. So different alaripus come as the structure behind the music, because alaripus about blossoming. It's about the lotus blooming in your body and your mind. So so that was inspiration. So it is interpreting the architecture in a different way, not literally telling there's a horse and there is a what, but how do you show it through that? And the costumes were designed by Priyan, and it's all Buddhist iconography in the costume. So it is a Bharatanatyam structure, because we still have to do our mandalas, we still have to do our mulumandis and circular reverse. So a costume can't be something that will come in the way of the dance, but the look and feel has to be not a typical Bharatanatyam costume. So how does it look from a Buddhist iconographic point of view? So maybe, shall I show the little clip?
Yes, please, please. So beautiful, so beautiful. So many thoughts were coming actually. You know, right from, I remember that Hindolam, that bit was there even in the clip that you gave, which went in the video earlier. The moment I saw that, actually I was calling and I was telling, hey, we can all recognize this because it comes so commonly in that Hindolam Tillana. You know, in that Mayadeva, it's a memory which is etched in what is so-called traditional.
Yes.
And yet within that space, it comes so naturally within that context. And now when I saw that, I know that, you know, kind of, and that moment to me pretty much sums up this entire festival of, you know, revisit and contextualizing. Because even if you go back to the video where Abhay Mera, a jeweler, speaks about how, you know, from an Addigai, its foundation is basic traditional design, but they try to evolve. And I asked this question, in the process of evolving, how do you know whether you're losing it or you're actually, you know, improving on the aesthetics, or at least maintaining and retaining the aesthetics?
Yeah.
He said that's difficult. But I think eventually looking at this piece, we know exactly. We had the conversation last Saturday was a conversation on aesthetics. And I remember between Jyotsna and Sai Shankar, they were just saying that it's about Saukyam. It's about the Saukyam and the Sukham, you know, and the sense of vastness, the sense of expanse and growing. It all seems to be coming together in just that. And there were so many such moments in what we saw. So thank you so much. Thank you very much. Very beautiful. Really beautiful. Very beautiful.
So this is, as I said, was inspired by the moonstone.
Yeah.
I didn't show the elephants, so there are 4 levels and
Yeah.
5 levels. So the Panjajati Alaripu kind of set
Ah,
they're not in that order, in the order of how we thought the movement will be. So,
correct. Makes
so
sense.
Kantam was suited for the Hamsas and Misram for the horse. The Kantam was for the elephants, and then
Ah,
the Sangirnam for the complicated, the creepers that are for the Samsara.
ah, 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 ah.
And then finally Chadusram, which is the heartbeat for the
Yeah,
lotus.
yeah, yeah. In fact, again, when you say, as is needed, we kind of realigned it. It comes back to the fact because in the first conversation, the question was almost a tussle, almost a tug of war, because there is a grammar, there is, a system which is already established. But yet, if we want to go out of it, how far can we go? How much does it pull us? Again, you answer that same question. When the purpose is very clear, you can work around it. It's not that it's all rigid, but as long as the aesthetics is maintained. Very nice, very nice. And then did we come to the next, actually, the Angkor?
So Annyasa is about the Buddhist monuments, and as you would have seen in the costumes, they are Bharatanatyam dhoti costumes in a very
Yeah,
quick way to say. But if you look at it, it's been created with the Buddhist iconography, and the jewelry and accessories are all Buddhist iconography. They're all lotuses actually, but we're seen in the Buddhist.
even the little flare next to the seat.
Yes.
I think I saw that very small detail, in fact, very small detail. In fact, when you sent the clip which was premiered earlier, this question was there in my mind, especially with Annyasa, because there was a sense of a journey across spaces. So the question that came to my mind was, how do you communicate the sense, because there is a story with reference to geography. The geography of all the places is different.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm sure the Buddhist context of these temples are also different.
Yes.
And in my head, I was wondering, oh my God, how do you manage so many variables, and that too within a context? And you very beautifully said how through that sense of, again, the same thing, right? The monument and why the monument, the what and the why.
Yeah.
You actually answered all of it without even me asking that question. Very beautiful.
So in Nirmanika, what we learned was that the monuments are not just mere beauty of architecture, it has a purpose. It has a
Yeah.
purpose, right? So, and here also in the Moonstone, it has a purpose of why every visitor walks through that to remind. And Buddhist monuments go much more into that philosophy of reminding. So even Borobudur, which we show in Nirmanika, it comes in Annyasa too as a finale.
Right.
In both the productions, the same finale.
Ah,
In Borobudur, it's like a meditative gym. You walk, you ascend height, and then you walk, and then you reach the top. So when you start in the first 4 layers, it's full of Jataka stories, it's full of Buddhist stories, carvings. It's rich with carving. Not even 1 inch is left without carving. As you go on top, it becomes emptier, and then it's nothing. And then when you reach the top pagoda, there is not even a Buddha sitting, it's empty because you are supposed to be there.
yeah,
You are
yeah,
supposed to attain Nirvana there.
yeah.
And it was built so many centuries ago for Buddhist travelers and pilgrims. But today, when you go there, you will see, a usual tourist who's there, who is taking, selfies and photos in the first 3 days, and they become quiet, they become calm. And then you don't see the cameras are not out anymore. So the building has that effect. So the
Yeah.
Buddhist monuments have that effect of creating that meditative mind. So that is what we were trying to get out of Annyasa, because the monuments have been built with a purpose. So every single brick and layer and level has a meaning to what it is.
Very
So
good.
that you can see in Cambodia a lot as well, how they also thought Hinduism. So Angkor Wat also, you climb, and then that effect is in the Murugan temples in South India. You know, as you climb all the hillocks to go to visit Murugan, you are in a meditative state after you have climbed all the stairs. But in other temples, it's flat level. But in Angkor, you will be ending up climbing.
In Batu caves also you have that sense of feeling. I understand, because what you're trying to say is at the end of the day, it's in the experience. The experience says it all. Have you been in the right path or not? Do you feel it? Then yes, that's where it is. Very beautiful.
So sequel to Angkor was during the pandemic last year. So we couldn't do anything. We were stuck. I mean, all the shows were cancelled, tours were cancelled, and then we were looking at how do we do something, and then the inspiration came. Let's do a digital production. So the digital production we wanted to do much more, meaningful than putting a camera and having the dancer being videoed, right? So it's a two-dimensional. So how could we use CGI technology, the green screen technology, and how we can actually bring reality and virtuality together? So reality of dancers and the virtuality of the so-called environment space that they're dancing in coming together, right? So first we experimented with a small work for about 35 minutes, which we brought the 5 paintings of Sita alive by Ravi Verma. So you will see that they are dancing inside the painting. So the painting becomes the virtual. But when you shoot it, they're in a CGI studio. So it's green walls, green roof. And then later you post it, you put them into the painting and they come alive. Then we thought we can now extend it to, so in Angkor, we do cover a small one monument in the story of Angkor itself when we did it. That's where when the character that Priyadarshini played, artisan from Cholanadu arrives, and that's the first monument she's brought to. Because she's instrumental to build Angkor. So Angkor was not built. So it was pre-Angkor. It is called Bante Sarai, Tirubhuna Maheshwaram. It's a Shiva Sthalam, but also both Vishnu and Shiva are there. And so we thought we will bring the temple is a very small, petite temple, big stone, but intricately carved. It's like jewelry. So every piece of stone is like a piece of jewelry. They didn't leave any piece untouched. So it's almost as if it is made of wood, but it's stone. So it's so intricately carved in wood. And they have the stories of all the Ramayana, Mahabharata in their bas reliefs. So we thought we will do that, but of course we couldn't go to Cambodia, right? So we can't go to Cambodia. So we filmed it in green screen, and then we actually recreated the virtual model of the temple. Okay, recreate the virtual model of the temple, and then put the dancers inside the temple in post edit. So when we were filming them, they don't know where they are dancing.
Yeah.
Only it's in our head. So we film them, and then they don't know which direction to look, and we have to tell them, look here, look there. So and you do multiple takes to get the different angles. And then in post edit, they are placed in the monument wherever we want them. So they would have walked in the green screen, they would have just walked across, but later in the video, they will actually walk through corridors, tunnels, they will come out through the pillars and all. So it became a very interesting way of actually creating, because now the camera can go where the audience can't go in a proscenium stage. In a proscenium stage, whatever you can do, the audience don't have the multi-dimensional view. The 3D experience is not there, but the camera can travel. So what happens is that then the whole dance experience becomes a different perspective. Yeah. But of course, nothing can take the live show. I mean, I'm not advocating that. But how can we make it different in the day? And in today's age, how do you use technology to enhance your traditional art without destroying it, without putting LED wall, bright lights, and how can you retain the ethos of Bharatanatyam and classical art, tell the story, and how you can bring it. So maybe I'll share a quick, it's a 2-minute clip only, right? Let me share that. So this is a short trailer of the work, and of course it was very demanding. It's very tough to do this because in post edit, a lot of work have to happen. You have so much of footage on different angles, so which to take, which not to take. But then you would have seen the experience is different, and even if you bring, we go to the actual monument and dance, the audience, unless they run behind us, they can't get to see this perspective, right? So if you put a set on stage, we will get a 2D view. So this is a 3D view of going in, and you saw them dancing on 2 levels, but when they were filming, they were just on 1 level, and then you use the technology to shift them to the level you want.
In
So
fact, much more than what I'm hearing, Arvind, what I can see is, yes, there was a problem. There was a COVID pandemic situation. But then what do you do with that is what I can see, out of the challenge. I can see that you have brought out something so beautiful, because if you were touring all around the world, which is what you do every year, this would not have happened. And yes, this is more difficult, but the learning is the real reward. Today, you are that production richer. And next time you actually see the choreography and production in exactly at these levels. So it is about the personal journey, which is what I'm seeing, where, and so many times you said, I'm not taking away the joy of live performance. Of course, yes. But then it is, as you rightly said, it's given the situation, you manage to give your audience as best as what is possible. That's an amazing way of looking at it.
And also a new challenge for our dancers to reimagine and dance in a different kind of environment, And
as a
they're
student,
dancing as if they are blindfolded. They don't know.
Not only blindfolded. I remember you talking about direction, and as a student, I think in just regular Zoom, people kind of struggle with direction, and then how do you look in the Zoom, not what you think you look, and then the timing looks different, the footwork looks, you think you're doing a great footwork, but in the video recording you said, really didn't realize it was like that. So in a simple Zoom class we have all these issues. So this kind of allows those students and the teachers to get into the smallest details and iron out, which otherwise we don't look with this kind of intensity. It's a very beautiful journey, actually. Very nice, very nice. Lovely. I'm actually more tempted to ask next what, but true to my style, I'll actually go back and ask one question before I can leave you with Apurva, probably. It all looks so seamless, It seems to be coming naturally, falling in place, but I'm quite sure it wasn't like that. So you did speak about Nirmanika light. What about, the Angkor, the moving pillars? How did Priyaka come into Angkor? Then when you start looking at, different Buddhist temples, where did this idea of what and why to capture, the 2 different parallel stories come? Where, how do you get into that process? Is it just you sitting and thinking all by yourself, or is it you talking to people connected with dance or unconnected with dance? Over these productions, do you find a pattern coming out about how you come?
I think one of it might sound very philosophical, but I think one of the way you can say it is the universe shows you a window and a door to open and go, right? So, but are you brave and dare enough to step out to your comfort zone into that new door that the universe is showing, or saying, no, I don't want to go there. I rather do what I know. So that's, I think, one reason. But I think the other reason is that all your experiences, you never know when they come as an inspiration, right?
Can you give me an example for both, actually, when you from your own personal experience?
So I think so. For example, traveling in Cambodia, at that time, never thought we were going to do a production on it. It was not the intention. But you took in information. You went to, and I think I'm sure there are a lot of young dancers watching this this talk. I think reading is very important. Reading and books. I know they are the treasure trove for you and your pillars. And I wish that dancers will read more nowadays. I see that they find the Google the easy way, or I hate this word that I go to a resource person and he or she will tell me everything. Then so where is your own search? Where's your own quest? When you come on stage, it's very obvious. Have you researched this, or have somebody told you to dance this? You can see it on stage.
Yeah, so true.
So I think so that is very important. And it doesn't mean that you have to do something now and immediately it will come out. It's not the case. So Nirmanika, Annyasa, Angkor, Amara, all these, right? In the middle, there are many other researches that never took off and never came to stage, because you realize that it's not the story you want to tell, or it will not make a craft as a stage craft. It will be good to write a book about it, or do a movie, and we're not in that line of art making. So you say, okay, fine, never mind, let it go. So that's the journey. So of course, now when I talk about it, it's all done and dusted, but the journey is always rough, and every time you start without knowing where you're going to go, and that exploration is what makes it. So my dancers on the opening night of a new show, I'm already, after we are done all the stage rehearsals and we are now going to premiering night, I will start talking to them about the next, what I'm thinking. And they'll say, Anna, idu mudikave illa. I said, no, it's done, finished. Now you all go and dance. So the journey of the making is what actually for me inspiring. And I find it to many artists. Many artists, the journey is the interest.
Always.
Of course, sharing it with the audience. And so if Angkor was able to be done after Nirmanika and Annyasa was done, the success lies that Nirmanika got the opportunity to be staged many times. So that is something that it's a boon and a privilege to be able to present and represent and reanalyze yourself and be critical about your work and try to do better. So Nirmanika had many runs. It had Singapore run, it came to Chennai, it went to Sri Lanka, it came to Liverpool, Manchester, London, and every time and different dancers were in it, and you kind of actually travel through the work. And then when you want to do something else, then you have a learning lesson. But if you do one show and finish bags and go to another one, then of course the experience is not attaching you, and that is a loss to the whole process. That's a loss to the whole process, right? And I don't know, I mean, how many years is the Kalakshetra Ramayana that we are watching? And every time we are watching as if it's the first time, right? True. But there is a current trend, oh, I don't want to do that amalgam anymore, I want to do a new choreography. So I think, the more and do, I mean, Krishna Tubhyam Namaha, I would have watched it, don't know how many times. And Batuka never gets bored doing it how many times, right?
No, none of us will ever get bored.
And every time you think, oh my God, how come I missed this part? How come I missed that part? Is it something new? No, it's not new. It's been there, but it is how you are, grasping, and the universe is telling you what to catch at that moment. So I think these are the answers to your question, Deepa.
Nice. You're right, because I've seen your production in different spaces. I've seen it in Manchester, Liverpool, Chennai, Singapore also, and every time it's so different. Actually, you're so right. Coming back to the Munna, Apurva, would you like to ask any of your questions?
Yes, Akka, thank you.
And also, in case there are any questions for the YouTube listeners, please do type it. Yes, Apurva.
Thank you, Aravind sir, for that really, really fascinating journey. Of course, I mean, I've had the joy of seeing both Nirmanika and Angkor live, which, it was such a wonderful experience. But I think the most recent sort of virtual reality production that you showed those 2 minutes of, I think it's really what you said at the end, right? It's about not just daring to imagine, but really daring to take that leap and convert your imagination to reality. It was absolutely fascinating. One of the things that I'd like to ask you and sort of know a little bit more from you is what, in fact, you kind of, said a little bit about, at the very end, is your process of how you work with your cast. This is something that's very interesting for me because, as a young dancer, whether we dance about, the Brihadishwara temple in our solo margams, or we dance, you would, put us in an ensemble which is dancing about the Angkor Wat. At some level, these are stories from a distant past. These are not stories that we are deriving out of our own lives. That is one thing. And the second thing is, you spoke about how in your head, there is the 100%. It is the 10% that distills. What I'd like to ask you is, how much of that 100% do you think your cast, your ensemble cast dancers, you feel should know to sort of convert your vision, into the reality that it becomes? And you just spoke about the importance of reading and research and coming with that conviction. So if you can sort of talk us through that process, like how is it, most of your casts are, many of them are pretty large cast number, and a lot of them are young dancers who work. So if you can talk to us a little bit about that, I think that would be very interesting for the young dancers.
So I think, I see two questions in your question. So the first one, right, even if you are doing a Brigadeshwar temple in a solo margam, and you are telling a story from the past, how have you converted that to your story? So of course in Bharatanatyam we have a gesture, we say, oh, Anneki, and then we start doing the Sanchari. But if you do that and then start doing Sanchari, and you are not in the Sanchari, you are not in that story, it is not your story and your way of telling the Brigadeshwara Sanchari, whatever it is, then I think that is the key is. So to make it your story, you must know a lot about that story, right? So if you are doing from an epic, let's say if you are doing the churning of the milk ocean, you should know so extensively and depth and different perspective of the story, different narrative of the story, then you can tell that story, right? You can't tell a story from just knowing, okay, Vishnu came as Matsya, and then they churned the ocean, they got the Amrita, then Shiva, the poison came, Shiva drank the poison. That's not the story, right? You should know more before you can, even though you only do that, what I just said. So I think that's the storytelling part. It's common, it's true for, so solo and ensemble have their own different challenges. In solo, probably you have more challenges than ensemble work sometimes, because you are there to hold the audience all by yourself. There is nothing, you have to hold. Yeah. But then ensemble, if you are out sync, you're out coordinated, you will ruin the entire work. So there is different challenges and different skills you have to build, So I would like to tell Bharatanatyam dancers, being an ensemble dancer, it's not a bad thing, okay, because it needs a lot of skill, and not every soloist can be an ensemble dancer. Many soloists will fail because they're not used to seeing from their eyes from here. They only know to see from here. You must be able to see from here, right? So coming to the research, right? So in every of this production, you have a creative team, then you have a cast. So at that many levels, the amount of information must be distilled down. Okay. So the creative team, let's say Rajkumar sir, who's doing the music, the composer, he needs to know different facets of the information you have collected for the music to help to tell the story, right? And something that I always thank Baduka for teaching us, all of us in the world, is to see music and hear dance, right? So Rajkumar sir has that ability, able to visualize what you want to do, and the music score kinds of helps you to do that. Then you have a lighting designer, then you have choreographers, then you have costume designer. So each of them need to know different facets of the research that you have taken. The dancers then must know what we are trying to tell. So not everything, let's say the whole research on Angkor was written down in a big file. No point everybody trying to go and read everything. So you should be able to distill out and give the different perspective, because every part then makes the thing. It's like in a very crude way, like a car, right? Somebody makes the steering wheel, somebody makes the seat, somebody makes the bonnet, somebody makes the mirrors, but they all come together, you have a car. The mirror person trying to understand the steering wheel and messing up the mirror will not work, right? So I think that's the way of production. So it is always a team effort. It is always that people who come on board, be the creative, be the cast, everybody plays a part. If one person doesn't rise to the level of efficiency, the whole thing will suffer. The whole thing. Just imagine a beautiful production, wonderful dancers, but the music composer was not giving 100%, and the music was so flat. I mean, the whole thing, you can pack it up, right? So I think that's the thing. So it's not about how much they know, what they should know, right? But working with young dancers, I think we are working in a different era of people. Sometimes I do wish the dancers actually, come and bombard you with a lot of questions and ask you but generally, they are very busy, so they are more busier than you. So, they do not ask that many questions. And I always wish that they ask more questions, because asking questions is not that I have all the answers, but also will make us think. And that's why nowadays we have benefited from having a dramaturg in our work. So we have worked with dramaturg. So the dramaturg's job is to ask the questions. He's not the choreographer. He's not the vision setter. In fact, the work he did will never come out in the work, in the story, in the production. You can't watch as an audience say, wow, the dramaturg is so good. No, you won't know, because he will keep asking you all the questions. His only job to ask questions, and you figure out the answer. And the answer could be, I want it this way. Fine. Or I don't have the answer. Go and search for it. It's fine. But so he will ask, why are you having 5 dancers in this scene? Why do you put? Why did you want to put why do you want to have this movement or this position? Why are you telling the story? Why this characters been imagined like this? So they keep asking the questions. So they become your sounding board, and you start to go and ask. So the role of a dramaturg can be played by anybody. It could be one of the dancers who's very inquisitive, can ask these questions, and then move along. So yes, asking question is good. I hope more young dancers will ask questions.
In fact, I have to tell you something, Aravind. I remember you spoke about a dramaturg in Krishna and Sabha when you were making.
Yes.
And what you would not realize is that's the first time I heard this term. And this role by itself is not something new for someone working, but to kind of define it as a specific role and give it a name gave a lot of focus. And in her own way, I think Apurva has played the role of dramaturg within our project. So it was quite serendipitous that you were actually answering her with that same word.
Yeah, and Natya Shastra is dramaturgy. The book is dramaturgy, right? So I suppose when you are doing when our early day Natwanars were creating repertoire for solo dance, the challenges were different. It was very different. But then when you have a production with so much moving parts, so much of creative people going in, somebody playing the role of dramaturg is very important, or you can get carried away and you can miss what you want to say. Yeah. And sometimes, you realize, oh no, this was what the intention we began with. Now we have ended up going somewhere because we got carried away, on some other impulse. So I think a dramaturg will hold you back, bring you back. But so I think that's something that we have benefited. Even when Mona Priyan created his solo work Paramapadam on the snakes and ladders, we had the dramaturg who was with us, because it is a new area. It's not a margam. It's not a Tanjore quartet margam. So how do you tell the story of a board game Paramapadam? So a dramaturg really helped for us in that journey too, to ask the questions. He will never have answers. So you can't say he's not a solution provider. It doesn't mean he asks you, he'll ask the answers. But you find the answer and it becomes your answer. It becomes your story.
So true, so true. I think every artist has their own journey where the biggest question is that thought and ideas being translated? Is it, going and reaching the people? Because that's the purpose of art, right? The communication. And I remember Raghuraman sir speaking. In fact, there was one other moment when I thought of him, when you said that, please don't go to resource person, do the homework yourself. But that apart, I remember sir speaking.
Go to resource person to questions.
Don't
give me a piece of paper and I will go and do it.
No ready-made pudding. Go for the recipe, but try it out yourself. Yes. So I remember sir speaking that, that you can communicate through Lokadharmi, Natyadarmi. Those are not the words. There are Tamil words. But he speaks specifically in Tamil of Pulaneri Vazhakku, which is to experience, to communicate by sharing with them how you are at that moment, experiencing.
Right.
And I think that's exactly what you were also referring to. And in some ways, I think all of it comes from, I'm just going through the YouTube chat, and I have two, comments coming. One is from Singapore. And this is Meenakshi Kaushik, who says, brilliant work, Mr. Aravinth, amazed by the grandeur of the performances and also the detailing you add in every project to make it a memorable experience for everyone involved. You are an inspiration. And then there is one coming from Chennai, which is Vaishnavi. And you can see it all beautifully coming together in the performance. The reason I'm just picking up random two is because here is someone from Singapore and Chennai, and I'm sure there are loads out there in UK as well. It doesn't matter whom you're speaking to, as long as there is clarity and the journey, the foundation is clear. I think we just need to keep walking. That's the message that comes from your conversation. And it's very, very interesting because actually this is the third of the 3 conversations within the Sangam festival. The first kind of, put us at a catch-22 situation, trying to say, here you have the Sangam grammar and there you have to, reach out to people. So how do you balance the two? Yes, the experienced experts can do it, but what do you do when you're starting the journey? And that's when we had the second conversation, which kind of came in to say that it doesn't matter. Take one step at a time and look at the bigger picture. Look at the space that the visionaries show. People like, because it was Sai Sir and Jyotsnaka, they were referring to, what they saw in Kalakshetra shown by Rukman Devi as the vision, right? It's not the small details of the form. It's not what is tangible, but it's the intangible that be mindful of it. And then if anyone had any doubt about what it was all, I think today's conversation pretty much brought all of it together, where the final product speaks for the journey. So
but it's never an unfinished, it's never a
absolutely.
It's never.
So true. I don't think we are finished with you either. I'm quite sure we are going to call you back.
I'm saying every production is not finished, it's just scope. And that's the beauty, when we look at visual artists, they sculpt or they paint, it's there for eternity. Van Gogh is there, whatever he thought. Yeah. But as a dancer, once you finish that adabu, that's gone. That moment is gone.
True.
That phrase has gone. It has disappeared into the universe.
So,
so it's the repetitiveness becomes a thing, and repetitive leads to meditative.
Yeah.
Right? We chant, we repeat. We write Sri Rama Jayam, right? So I think that is the beauty of performing art, because it's in the repetition, it's in the remaking, in the reimagining. So thank you for having me, Deepa. It is, one thing is that it's make me rethink when I talk to you, you also reevaluate yourself, you understand, and
very true.
That's the pandemic has allowed us to do. If not, as you said, we are busy running around and staging and rehearsing, and we have no time to sit down and even think.
Yeah. It has allowed us to pause and kind of, look within. And I think on that note, I think we should just sit in all the little YouTube dots that have come through the past 3 weeks. And we hope to come back again in August to a second part of the Sangam Festival. But I think there's lots for us to think through. So thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Apurva. And thank you, Deepa, for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to both of you.